Welcome to Sault Ste. Marie's East End Wastewater Treatment Plant. This is where over half of our city's wastewater goes after it enters the sewage system via our sinks, showers, and toilets. My name is Aaron Alessandrini, and until they find somebody better looking, I'll be your host. Today I'm joined by our friends Michael Poliani, Bill Reed, and Lisa Stasia, as they walk us through the process of taking our city's wastewater and transforming it back into a clean state to be safely reintroduced to our natural water system without impacting the environment. This is PUC's Day in the Life.
So I'm here with Bill Reed. This is the first stop on our tour. This is the Inlet building. So this is where all of the sewers and the municipal waste all sort of enter the complex, right? And so can you tell me a little bit about this spot and kind of what we got going on here?
So in our inlet building, this is where the incoming sewage comes into the plant. We have a couple of pumping stations out that bring it to us. The purpose of the whole plant is to have the bacteria. They're going to do the work for us. So the first thing we have to do is remove anything that the bacteria can't handle. Okay. So that's going to be anything too big, too large for them to eat. Right. So this building, we're going to take out all the heavy stuff that is floating in the water, feminine hygiene products, rags, any disposable wipes, that kind of stuff. Any grease that's coming in is all going to come through here. Sometimes the little pet goldfish doesn't swim anymore, so burial at sea, he'll come through here as well. So in our inlet building, everything's coming in. We're diverting it into two different channels.
That's these two?
These two outside channels. It's going to go through our mechanical step screen first. We're going to take out anything that's too big to be handled later on in the process. They're going to come into a mechanical step screen is what we call it. Okay. And I'll open it right now and you can have a
sure,
peek.
You can kind of walk me how the step screen works.
Sure, yeah. So we'll open this up. Each of these rakes, they're kind of divided into two. Half of them are going to move and half of them are going to stay stationary. Okay. And they're just going to lift everything up onto each individual screen, and it's going to keep walking it up until it finally gets up, cascades over into a conveyor, and gets taken over to a bin. It's one step at a time as opposed to carrying it all the way up.
Very dirty escalator.
Very dirty, yes. We're at the tail end of everything coming in. So all the heavy stuff that doesn't belong in wastewater will come through here. We've come across quite a bit of stuff over the years. We've come across hard hats, 6-foot section of weeping tile. I've pulled up a couple of living snakes and released them back out into the wild. Yeah. The water is able to flow through these things, through the plates, and as they keep walking up, they'll bring newer stuff up there. And as the material builds up, it actually forms a bit of a mat, and it'll start filtering and collecting even more finer stuff, taking even more out of the wastewater. It gets to a certain differential of water level, and that's what initiates it on its own to walk up. So all this machinery will work on its own. We're just here to maintain it, keep it in good running order, and it works very well without us.
Just to keep it greased.
Absolutely, yeah.
Now this is why it's so important not to be flushing your contraceptives and your feminine hygiene products and your Barbie heads and goldfish and everything, because this is where it all ends up, is right here.
Absolutely, yes. Nothing should be going down the toilet other than what basically comes out of you and I. Right. There are other disposable methods to get rid of that stuff, specifically the garbage for most of it. So that's what landfill waste is for. But yeah, please don't put it down the toilet. Right now, one of our biggest problems are the flushable wipes. Right. The wipes, flushable means it'll go down your toilet. After that, it still causes us problems.
Causes some issues in the machine and the filtering.
In the collection system, as well as at the sewage plants, yeah. So it's not just a problem for us, it's a problem for the city workers and everything else. There are pumps out in the city that pump the sewage to us. It'll clog up those pumps and gets caught on intake screens and other stuff like that.
Really?
Yeah, it's a very high maintenance item. The next step behind us is going to be grit removal. So we're going to take out the sand, the tiny little rocks, the pebbles, marbles, stuff like anything like that gets in it.
So this is the first line of defense,
This
basically.
is the first line, yeah. We're taking everything that the bugs can't handle because they're the real star of this place. They're the ones that do all the hard work for us, but they can only work on stuff that's small enough for them to deal with. And this stuff is much too large.
If we're lucky, we get to meet them later.
Well, I'm hoping so, yeah. They can be finicky though, so yeah.
So after the step screen process, we come down to the grit removal, right, Bill?
Yes.
So kind of walk me through what this whole system does.
So after the steps screens, we're going to have the water come in, and you can almost see a bit of a circular pattern here where all the grading is. We're going to slow the water down a little bit, and what that does is now it allows the grit to settle out, because the velocity of the water is what kept it in suspension before. Now we're going to slow it down a little bit. We let that stuff drop out. We can't see it too well here because ours are bedded in the ground, but it's almost like an ice cream cone shape. And the part that you would hold, yeah, it's going to taper and then taper in and then go down. The part that you would hold at the bottom is where we're going to collect all that grit. We're going to make a slurry out of it, and we're going to pump it up with these pumps. And they come over to a pyramid classifier over here that we call it. It's going to concentrate it just a little bit more, and then we're going to use a screw conveyor that's going to pick up that grit, put it into a bin, and off to the landfill it goes.
It's the circle of life. Okay, so behind us, this is where
we've
fun
gathered
stuff
up
goes.
everything that's come out of the water, yeah. We put all our rags and cloth material through a compactor, and that's the circular pipe up there that's pushing it out. We've affectionately named it the sausage maker. And then beside it is the ramp for the grit coming down. You can see a little bit on the end. So once this bin fills up, we'll have it get hauled to landfill, and that's it. Well, there's nothing we can do with this material afterwards, so unfortunately it's got to go to landfill.
How often do you say this gets filled and taken to the landfill?
Again, it's going to matter on whether it's like spring runoff or the fall rainy season. It's going to go a little more often. If it's middle of winter, middle of summer, a little less often. But for an average number, probably one bin a month.
Really? Just
maybe a month and a half,
right?
Yeah.
What's the piping that I'm seeing here? What part of the process is that?
This is all the air piping, so we're going to collect from this building and a couple of the other buildings that have a little bit of the stronger smells, and we're going to send all this air through a biofilter, we call it.
Really?
And so it's going to have a rock aggregate material down there. We're going to keep that rock moist because, again, we have bacteria living down there, so they always need a moist environment, and they always need it to be warm. So it's warm water there we're going to be adding. And then we're just going to percolate the air up through it, and they're going to eat the sulfides in the air, which is the smellier compounds, and the mercaptans is another name for them as well. They're going to eat all those smelly compounds, and hopefully the air that's coming out is going to have a lot less odor to it and keep our neighbors happy.
Enough to finally get outside and get some fresh air after that last room. So Bill, tell me about what this area is here.
So now we've come to our primary clarifiers, and what we're going to do here is we've taken out all the rags, all the grit. Now it's the heavy organic solids that, again, the bugs aren't really going to break down this stuff real well. So we're going to let it settle out here. Again, we're slowing the velocity down a bit, let that stuff settle out. We're going to send the sludge that's here over to our another tank. It's called the fermenter. We're going to let that stuff sit for a little bit. We're going to let it ferment, and we're going to use the liquid that comes off of there over in our bioreactors. And what we're going to do is we're going to trick some bugs into be extra hard working for us with the water that comes off of there. So that's where that solids are going to go. So we barely keep very little solids in here. That's usually different from what happens at most sewage treatment plants. They want to collect solids in their primaries. We don't. We differ in that. That's because of our BNR process. Before we get to that step, we have to make sure that the bugs are ready to use everything in the water, and this is the last step of that. So we're going to get rid of the heavy organic solids.
Preparing the meal for them, so to speak.
Absolutely, yes.
All right, Bill, after this then, what's the next step?
From here, and we're going to go to the bioreactors. That's where our bugs live. That's where the magic happens.
That's it, we get to meet the bugs.
And yeah, we're going to see all the hard work that they do in the bioreactors.
All right, let's take a look.
Okay.
So now Bill and I are here at the bioreactors. This is outside, and so what we're standing in front of here are two very large tanks with a bit of a causeway in the middle. Give me a breakdown on what's happening here.
So both tanks have a certain have an S shape to them, and the first runway is just delivering the food-laden water from the primary clarifiers. This is what the bugs are going to eat. Okay. As they come into the second bend of the S, they're going to meet up with the bugs that have already been through this phase. They're coming back for a return journey, and that's what we do is we keep recycling the bugs. Sure. So the food is going to meet the bugs, and they're going to go down an unoxygenated raceway. And what we're going to do is it's going to handle the kind of nitrogen phase that we're going to deal with here. We need to take the ammonia that's in our urine and everything else and break that down. And so we're going to get rid of it. The ammonia is going to become NO3, NO2, down to nitrogen gas, and we're going to precipitate it off. And we're also going to start the phosphorus phase that our bugs go through. So everything here is biologically driven. So it's all about the bugs doing the work for us. And so we have to provide a good home for them. That's the bioreactors. It's nice, big, aerated, lots of oxygen there. But we're going to stress these bugs out as part of their phosphorus phase. Okay. The oxygen, if you look at it, the analogy I like to use is kind of like vegetables and candy, like with young kids. I'm going to make you eat your vegetables first before I let you have your candy.
Before you get the good stuff.
And so in the unoxygenated range, they're going to have to use up that other oxygen first, that NO3, NO2s, and break it down. It's a little tougher to do. In the process, they're going to kind of get rid of some of their phosphorus, but going back to our fermenter, when we moved our primary clarifier sludge to the fermenter, we're not going to take the liquid from there because it's got a special chemical in it caused by the fermentation process. Okay. It's called a volatile fatty acid. When we add that into the process here along that unoxygenated raceway, the bugs are going to take that VFA and now it's going to trick them. So as soon as they come around to the oxygenated part, they're going to pull up even more phosphorus than what they dumped out in the first place. And so now they're just going to load up and get themselves fat on the phosphorus. And that is how we're able to remove the phosphorus, by wasting off those bugs, sending them to landfill, and that's how we don't put the phosphorus out into the river as one of the components that we have to watch here. So it's all being done biologically. A lot of other sewage plants in Ontario still do the waste activated sludge where aluminum sulfate is added, and it precipitates a metal salt, and that's how they get rid of the phosphorus. But that's adding a chemical into water that's going to end up out into the rivers. We're trying to do everything a little bit of a greener route here with the BNR process, and we're very proud of what we do here.
There's no moving parts, it's just
bugs. It's the bugs doing all the hard work for us. They're making us look good. When we're not doing our job, we'll notice that the bugs aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing. Okay. And so when we see things like our phosphorus coming up, we have to start investigating, okay, what's changing, and try to bring it back into line. So often it's like steering a ship. You have to kind of go off course before you can bring the ship back on to course.
So how do you monitor your levels?
We have a lab that we're taking samples daily. So we have our own in-house lab that we have to do. As well, the ministry sets out guidelines that we have to send samples away to a third-party lab, so that way we don't have my brother-in-law taking care of my numbers and making me look good. Exactly. It's all above board. So, and we'll still do our in-house testing as well and make sure that we're doing everything right. As well, in the UV building, we have it's called a ChemScan unit, and it is constantly monitoring phosphorus levels, it's constantly monitoring nitrate levels, and it's constantly monitoring ammonia levels, as well as the transmittance, how well light shines through the water. So this machine runs 24/7. It's like a 24/7 lab tech on site all the time. So it's always giving us trending data that we can come back and follow, whether it's months later, days later. We have real-time data that we can always look at.
So now I'm in the lab, joined by Lisa Stasiak.
Lisa, now all day we've been affectionately referring to these organisms that have been doing all the heavy lifting as bugs, and that's not totally accurate, is it?
They are microorganisms, and even the ones that we can see, that we look at through our microscopes just to test the health of our process, there's smaller ones that we can't see with our microscope, but they are doing a lot of work in the background. The ones we see and the ones we want are say the stoxiliates and the rotifers. They are voracious eaters, like teenagers. We also look at what's coming in, so we look at ammonia, total phosphorus, soluble phosphates, and we monitor those in-house. We also send out our weekly compliance labs, and we test them out of the same sample to see how we're doing for QA/QC. We don't want to wait for our lab results to come back after we've sent them out weekly, because by then things have changed and then we're being reactive. Here we can always know what's going on, and we could see, say, the phosphates are climbing, and we say, why is that? What can we do? But we need to monitor how it's going, as opposed to, oh, geez, we failed, we better fix things now. We want to be able to fix things as we see them happening.
Now, I've heard the terms like affluent and fluent waters, is that correct? Kind of all throughout the day, and I believe you have some samples,
I
actually.
do. This is a sample of our influent. So
Influent,
this is
okay.
influent. And that's what comes into the plant. So this has been sitting for a while in the warm.
So that's coming in from the main sewage lines and
so that's what's coming in. That's broken
particulate.
up toilet paper, all sorts of stuff. And it's more than toilet water. So when people say, ooh, but it's not, it's shower water, it's sink water, it's,
anything coming
it's
from.
anything.
Okay.
And then we have, this is our water when we're done. Oops, sorry. This is what's going into the river.
And that's from the river. Or to the river, sorry.
To the river. But you can see we did a good job. Actually, the bugs did a lot of it.
Bugs did a lot of work. So I'm here in the secondary clarifiers, joined by Michael Poliani. How's it going, Mike?
Very good, thank you.
So give me just a bit of a breakdown of how these guys work. What's kind of happening within the tanks?
So the purpose of the secondary clarifiers are where we were at the last point with Bill in the bioreactor. The water naturally flows towards here.
Okay.
And then it comes up through the center, if you can see there in the background. And as that happens, there's a natural settling of the elements within the water.
Okay.
And as that settles, there's a scraper bar on one side of that rotating arm that agitates it, and then there is a vacuum on the opposite end that will actually
take everything
take
in,
that sediment, yes, and then distribute it throughout the plant as they see accordingly. Essentially, it's a 16-foot glorified swimming pool, I guess.
So after this stage, then where does the water end up?
Once that water goes over that weir, it's pretty much a straight shot to that to the UV treatment, and then it's crystal clear after that.
Awesome. Well, let's take a look at the UV treatment.
Sounds good.
So Mike and I had a chance to kind of take a look inside the UV station here, and again, this is the final stop, right? The water from here goes right into the river.
That's right.
And just after we kind of looked at it, everything, water comes in, light goes on.
Well, the lights will always stay on. This is one of the lights right here. So there's 40 of these in each bank.
Okay.
So if required, all 80 are on, depending on flow and the UV dose that's required. What this does is provide UV light at a certain intensity to ensure that the effluent water that's being discharged from this plant far outweighs the cleanliness of the river water itself. And as a precautionary measure, a secondary measure to that, there is a ChemScan monitoring system that we use.
So you guys are constantly testing to make sure that the water leaving the station is best quality, totally clean.
That's right.
And you were saying earlier too, now, because there's an algae issue, right? That starts to grow in the water there. You have a cleaning system for the bulb?
There's essentially a cylindrical more or less like a glorified squeegee that goes on here, that at a certain requirement that it's starting to lose its intensity, will actually slide down this tube
Just clean it out.
and just clean it off basically, and then come right back up.
$5, I'll drink it.
I might have a glass with you.
Well, there you have it. Fortunately, what I've learned here today will stick with me much longer than the smell. We followed the city's wastewater from its initial intake in the Inlet building, through grit removal, to the primary clarifiers, bioreactors, UV filtration, and finally out to the river. I would like to thank Lisa, Michael, and Bill, as well as PUC, for helping to shed some light on what it takes to finish the life cycle of water and return it back to nature as a clean effluent to restart the process again. Thank you for watching, and make sure to join us next time for the next part in our series. This is PUC's Day in the Life.